Hey guys, and welcome to the Parrot Bros. Today we're going to be doing a video on an extensive buyer's guide for the Audi Mk1 TT. Now in this guide we'll be going over key things to look for when buying, or if you already own and you want to have a good look at it, the Mk1 TT. So I'm not going to go over the general stuff like making sure the windows go up and down and that the heater works and all that sort of normal stuff that would be on any car. This is focused specifically on the Mk1 TT platform. So before we get stuck into it, let's jump into the intro. Okay, so when going to look at an Audi TT Mk1, there is only a couple of things that you'll need. Firstly, you'll need your smartphone, and I'll explain why in a minute. You'll also need a torch. You'll be able to look into some of the parts underneath and get a good look in the engine bay. And if you can, you need a diag or a VCDS or something similar so that you can read the codes, because even if there's not something displayed on the clocks in the center, there may still be fault codes logged. Not every single one brings a light up on the dash, so it is always worth checking. So yeah, that is what you need. Now smartphone, the reason you need your phone, or you have a mirror like the old school days, and basically that's for checking things underneath and things that you may not be able to see directly. So that's like the bushes underneath. Just have a little look for rust, because all you would do is just tilt your mirror or your phone up at an angle and you can just use it to have a look underneath at maybe something that you can't get to. Also, a little tip is to wear clothes that you don't mind laying on the floor, or take like a piece of mat or a piece of carpet or a dust sheet or an old towel or something, because you want to have a good look. You want to be able to put the wheels on lock, have a look into the wheel arches. You want to be able to lay down and have a look up underneath, and I will show you what you'll be looking at in a minute. Now, I've broken this down into sort of 5 or 6 little sections, so like interior, exterior, engine bay related items, and a little bit of information about paperwork. So let's get stuck into it. We'll start with interior. So when looking at the interior of an Audi TT, sounds quite simple, which it is. You want to start by checking some of the stuff. Now, I'll just turn you around to the clocks. Now mine have a problem, so this is ideal, and to be honest, if you're looking at cars, you'll probably find that maybe 30 or 40% of them have a problem with the clocks of some description, because they're not particularly great. So with the clocks, firstly you'll notice that this little screen here in the center is pixelated. Now obviously I've got the door open, but you can see that that is not a full car. There's loads of lines missing which goes across. And also you want to check things like, usually if anything's going to fail, it's the temperature gauge and the fuel gauge. Normally the fuel gauge gets stuck to full, and if this screen does work at all, if you press these two buttons here, this will let you flick through the different things. It says I need a service, which I've done, and it should let you flick through. Now once it's started, which I'll do now, apart from the fact that it's really noisy. So you can see there it says I've got 165 miles, which the way I drive based on half a tank is probably about right. And it will let you cycle through the different things by pushing this button here. You can see what the kind of miles per gallon that's got. If you can read half a line, it's about 36. So I've been doing quite a lot of round town driving. Now you'll notice this light hasn't gone away. Now this light is here because the other day I had to pull my fuse for the four-wheel drive system, because for some reason I've got an issue with one of the ABS sensors and it locked my brakes up. So that is one thing to check. Now also I want to point out, when you're checking the clocks and you're looking at any car, this applies to anything really, when you turn your ignition on, always make sure that you've got all the lights that work. So you want to make sure they're all lit, because otherwise someone could have pulled a bulb and they're trying to pull a fast one on you, so you may have problems that you don't really know about. But mainly TT focused is these two can fail, and they'll either be on full or whatever. The rev counter can go a bit funny sometimes, and the display in the middle goes. Now, to have these repaired, I think the screen's about 120 pounds, and to have these fixed again is about 120 pounds. So that could be 250 pounds to get the cluster changed. So do bear that in mind, and that's quite a common one for the TTs. Checking these buttons work. Now the hazard switch can be quite a problem. It does fail with the indicators as well. So all you want to do is just make sure it works. Press it. It should obviously tick like normal. Just go outside and check that that's the case. My one works fine. Check the heated seats work. You depress the button and it pops out, which then allows you to turn it and all the lights come on and it will warm up. Just check it works. by pushing it in and out. Same as the ESP button, just when it's running, press it, and you should get one of the lights come up on the dash. Stereos, again, quite similar. They can be a bit knackered, they can be a bit temperamental, so just push the button, it should come on, push it again, it should go off, and that should be okay. With these buttons get quite prone to snapping. Actually, when I bought mine, I literally just touched it and it fell off, so I'm guessing the previous owner probably glued it on there for me. And these also can fail. Now, if the door card's ever been taken off, someone doesn't put them back in right, then they may or may not open. They may foul on this metal bit here. So just make sure by pressing it that they go down, press it that they go back up again. And that is it for that. The other thing to check with a TT, which is not always the same as other cars, is you have this button here, which is for your fuel, and the right hand side button is for your boot. You want to make sure both of them work. Normally you can do it without the keys in there, so if I press this, we will notice, see if I can get that the caps popped up, so I'll push that down in a minute. And you want to press the boot button, and you might hear it on the camera, you might not, but that opened the boot, so I know that that works. And the other one is just to turn the sensors off, which for if someone opens, say for instance you lock your car with your windows open, and it will make the alarm go off, etc. So that's cool. You can also check here, you've got a lock and unlock button, just make sure they work. Generally they're not too bad. And the other thing I wanted to mention was with these, with the doors, they can drop because they're quite a heavy door. Obviously it's quite a large door, and you want to check for this kind of damage. If it has this damage, the likelihood is the door's probably dropped, which means you may need to get the latch adjusted, which is, again, it's something to think about, because obviously it's all work, and all work costs money. And with this, TTs are quite renowned for this, so you want to make sure that the window drops. When you open the door, you see it drop there, and then when you shut it, it goes back up again. Now that, if that fails, it means it's very easy to lock your keys in the car, because you'll say, for instance, come up, unlock your car, open the door, then if you get in, remember you forgot something, get back out and leave your keys in the car. When you shut the door, if the window hasn't dropped at all, the micro switch in the lock fails, and your car will just relock itself. Even if you've opened the door, it doesn't know that you've opened the door. So that is something to bear in mind. It's not an expensive fix. I think they're about £20, but you have to take the door card, you have a door card off, you have to take the mechanism apart. So there's quite a lot involved with that. So that is pretty much interiors. So we shall move on to exterior. Okay, so now we move to the exterior. There's quite a few little things on these. Again, they're all something or nothing, but it is worth checking. Now, the first one is lights. So these aren't too bad, but you can see, actually they are pretty bad to be fair, but they're not as bad as some. You can see there's like a hazing, and depending on how bad it is, can actually fail an MOT, because it means your beam pattern is out. You can actually see, I don't know if you can get it on camera, see there's some sun damage here. Now that normally sort of comes down halfway, and sometimes can actually be the whole light. You can just see this one starting to go pretty bad. So that will need doing. It can be done. A lot of companies out there are doing it for sort of £40 to £60, where basically they sand it down, then machine polish it and give it a clear coat. The rears also have a similar problem. They're not so bad, but what they actually do, you can sort of see it on this one. I have done a little repair, but basically these have like a sticker on both rear lights. I'm not really sure why, but they have a sticker, and it goes like this across the whole thing. And all I've done is I've just sanded the whole light and painted it, but obviously I missed a bit. And that just goes sand. That's more for aesthetics than anything. I mean, a new set of rear lights is probably £60 to £100 for a good set without that damage. So that is one thing to bear in mind when looking at lights. Now we'll go on to rust. Not all cars are going to be rusty. Mileage dependent, maybe if they've lived by the seaside, Scotland, etc. This one, apart from nearly being 200,000 miles, I'm sure has lived by the seaside at some point. Now, your main points of rust are the side skirts, which are removable. So you normally find that the damage is at the front and the back, and you may also find a little bit of damage just where the bumper meets the rear arch. Again, where people kick it getting in, because they can't get into a car properly. There's also a bit of rust here, again on the side skirt trim, which comes off. The front arches can get stone chips, again much like any cars, but to be honest, rust wise they're not too bad. Now this one has got what is common, which is a blocked let me just open the boot. It has like block ducts where the windows come, and it gets rusty underneath here. I don't know how well you can see this because the light is terrible, but you can see, yeah, it rusts around here. Now the lights still work, but you can see there is some surface rust either side. I mean, this is done 180 something thousand, so I'm not too worried. It's not on the outside. The light still works. Touch wood, as long as they don't break, I won't ever have to take them out. So that is another thing to check. The next thing we've got is mechanical. Now, this is what I said about bringing old clothes and obviously being able to get on the floor. Now, there's a few things you want to check, and they are as follows. I'll pop some pictures up. I'll also try and get the camera down there a little bit. You want to check the springs, make sure it sits level all round. Now, I'm parked on a hill, so you can't really do this, but if you can take it somewhere, even if you go for a test drive, just park on the flat, have a walk around, make sure it looks level. You want to have a good look in at the front and rear arms. Now, I've parked straight so you can't really see, but I'll stick it up in the video. But basically the front arms are just down there. See if I can see it. Turn the camera up. See the front lower arms just there. You want to make sure the bushes are all right. I'll show you a picture so you know what you're looking for. And again on the rear, it's not ideal because it's quite dark around here, but on the rear you want to look up at the rear arms. Make sure that the bushes don't just look like they're absolutely hammered. And also the trailing arms, which I'll try and get on video, maybe, if I can. Just get on the floor. So these bushes here, which the trailing arm sits in, can be very knackered. So that is the bushes. Like I said, I'll flag some pictures up just so you can have a look, so you know what you're looking for. That's what you want to take your torch for. So yeah, front and rear lights. So yeah, the xenon. So if it's a 225 or if it's a rare spec 180 with xenons, you have the alien eyes. Now when you spray your, if you turn the headlights on and then spray your window, these should pop out and spray the lights. Now that is, I believe, an MOT failure if it has xenons and it doesn't have working washers if they're fitted. Pretty much exterior wise, that's about all. The only other thing I'll mention about mirrors, if they've had a whack, they can be a bit floppy, which is annoying, so I've actually got a new one to change that. They should be pretty rigid. They do fold in, but this one's rigid, so you can see there's no movement whatsoever, and if you give it a push, it folds in and it's, again, really firm. But yeah, no, apart from that, they're pretty good. So yeah, that is exterior. So let's move on to engine bay. Okay guys, so now you're in the engine bay. You want to have a good look. There's a few little checks you want to do. Some of them are really simple, some of them take a little bit more. So one of the first ones with the TT, especially on the Mark 1s, is pop this little cap here. And you want to make sure, obviously don't touch it because it's still connected. You just want to make sure that all these fuses are solid, and you want to make sure that this one isn't melted. Now, the reason I say this is because this does various things around the car, one of them being fans, one of the big ones and one of the small ones. And basically you just want to make sure that the cable doesn't look like it's burnt, the fuse doesn't look like it's melted in the holder. I mean, you can just sort of pull it out and have a little look, make sure it all looks relatively well intact. And that's quite a common issue. You normally notice that if the fans fail, which we can check, is so basically to check that the fans work, because this is quite a common issue with the low speed not working, is go into the car, turn the ignition on, turn the blowers on, and make sure it's not on econ, put it on auto, and when the aircon's running, the fans should run on low speed. Now that's both fans. They're not particularly loud, but you will see them running. So that's a good way of proving that the fans work. You shouldn't really hear them come on loud. They do come on loud, and when they do, you will hear them because it is awfully loud. But the second speed doesn't often happen. It's mainly just when you're sitting in traffic. If they don't come on the speed one, that means that the speed one has failed, and that you may need to replace the fans because the resistors inside have broken down. Yeah, the other thing is to do is open this. You'll just need either a flathead screwdriver or a 50 pence or something. Just twist it, pull it out, and just touch it on a bit of cloth. Make sure it's green. If it's pink, it's going to need changing because it's not supposed to be pink, and it can cause the power steering to fail. So that's quite an important one. Quite a lot of people just put pink in because that's all they know. But no, this has to be the green one. If it whines when you turn it lock to lock, again, that could be why, because it's got the pink stuff in. So it's not actually anything wrong. It's because the fluid in there is breaking down because it's not the right one. coolant piping. Now these are quite common for leaking in the normal places. Now they have this, see if I can, let me get my torch. See, this is why you need the torch. So on here you can see there's like a metal clip. You can look directly underneath and you can see there might be some pink staining. That could just be from where it's had a coolant change, or they've taken the top of the rad off. And the pipes can fail because they're sort of like a push fit plastic. The other failure, which is quite common on these, is this, where I'm shining the torch, this here, because it's made out of plastic, and obviously you can imagine after 10,000 heat cycles of hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, the plastic can get brittle and snap, and that's quite a common place for leaks as well. All the coil packs match. Now this, if you have got an engine cover here, take the cover off. They're usually just quarter turns or twist and then you just lift off, or they could just pull off. You just want to check that all 4 coil packs look the same, because usually when they fail, the other ones aren't far behind them. So if they've got a mixed match of coil packs, it's something to certainly bear in mind, because ideally you want all 4 the same. If you can also, while you're there, just get your thumb and have a look at the wiring. Just be careful if it's hot, because you can see there I've got a stripped earth. Now I actually left it for this video, but you see there that the insulation's actually come off, and you can see copper, which if any of the other wires have done that, you'll have no end of problems, because you'll start getting earthing issues and all sorts of great little problems like that. So that's always something to bear in mind. And the other thing, while we're in pipings, common failures is the pipes fail. Now you can see here I've got silicone, but some of the existing pipes, to be fair, I've replaced quite a few of these, but underneath here, let me torch again. So this is why it's handy to have the torch. So underneath here it looks quite sweaty. It's a bit oily, and that is because it had loads of failed piping. Now usually where it fails is this pipe here, is the PCV system, which goes down this plastic pipe, which then goes under the inlet. You can just about see here where my finger is. This pipe here goes into like a T and a valve and all that other good stuff. Let me get the torch again. So you can see there's that sort of one-way valve pipe, and that goes underneath the inlet. Now the easiest way to check that is to just have a good look. It will probably look a little bit sweaty, but just give them a squeeze. I mean, this is silicone, so it won't be the same, but you can give it a squeeze and it sort of rebounds. Now if it's old rubber, when you squeeze it, it may not come back how you expect it. It might just sort of squidge in and you sort of know that it's no good. So that is always worth checking, because they are a massively common failure on these. Probably 1 in 2, if original, will have some problem, some leak somewhere. The other thing to check with the 1.8 turbos is this gasket here between the rocker and the head is really common to leak. So you just want to have a look all the way around there and just look for sweatiness. Now I've actually changed this one so you can see it's nice and clear. There's no oil leaking, and obviously below is still silver. Now normally if it's not and it's leaking, if it will look like it does under there, and it will look a bit sweaty and a bit sort of damp and greasy and has dust on it and all sorts. So that's quite a common one to check. Now they're only about 30 quid. You can do it yourself if you've got a little spanner set. They're not too bad, but it's all cost. And while you're in buying one, it's always good to know all the things you're going to have to do. Now the other thing is to check if your injectors are letting by. Now I've changed the seals on mine, but again, so where the injector goes into the inlet, I'm trying to get my finger in here, so here where there's like a cup, if it's letting by or the seals are going, you'll notice like a sweatiness again. It almost looks like oil or water with like a dust residue, and that'll be around everywhere where the injectors go. So the injector seals, again, is only a 20 or 30 pound job, and it's not too bad to do, but it is all cost. So do bear that in mind when you're looking. What else have we got on our engine bay checklist? Yes, we checked the top battery fuse. Yeah, that is pretty much it for a basic check. I mean, get it started, make sure it runs, make sure there's no horrible knocking noises. Give the engine a little shake, make sure the engine mounts are pretty solid, because they can fail. Have a look down onto the gearbox, make sure there's no puddles of oil there, make sure the selectors look all right. But apart from that, just a good general inspection. They're the common failures. Sometimes the dipstick tube can fail. Also, if it hasn't got all of this stuff here, it may have been deleted. If it hasn't got all of this piping here with the stuff underneath the PCV, then it may have a catch can here or here. That's quite a popular thing to do. So yeah, they're the sort of the common things to look for in an Audi TT Mark 1 engine bay. Okay, so you've done the exterior, the interior, you've done the engine bay, you've made a little list probably to get a bit of money off maybe. I found a few little problems, no doubt. I doubt any 20-year-old TT won't have at least one thing that we've mentioned on that list. And then you're down to the paperwork. So hopefully it's got a nice file. Do the basic checks. So you want to get the V5 document of ownership and have a look in the windscreen there, or under the, if you open the bonnet, in the scuttle tray, there's a little clear thing that has the VIN number. Just check that that's right, check that they match. You want to check if it's got a good service history. Make sure it's had a cam belt within the last 5 years or 60,000 miles, whichever's soonest, as that's a sort of 300, 400 pounds job, maybe a little bit more if you go to a big dealership. You want to check that it's had regular service intervals, including the Haldex four-wheel drive system, because that, if it goes unserviced, can fail. And can cause you quite a lot of problems and cost quite a lot of money. And at the end of the day, if you're buying it because you want it to be four-wheel drive and it's not, that is a good one. So make sure that's checked, and also check that it's had an oil pickup pipe done, or it's had documented that it's been cleaned or replaced, because they are quite common. They sit on the underside of the engine, just above the internal of the sump. And what they do is it draws oil up into the engine. Now they can get blocked with sludge, with bits of anything that's left in there, bits of the old pickup, the old pipes, the dipstick pipe, if it drops and breaks and falls in there. And that can get blocked, and that will cause you low oil pressure, which could starve the engine, and you'll get that horrible red oil can light on your dash, and you stop immediately because it could ruin your engine. So oil pickup pipes, they're like £25 for a genuine one, or you can take the old one off if you've got a parts cleaner and clean it. And that is a massive thing. I mean, I've seen in the last 3 months at least 4 people that have had that issue. So that is quite an important one. If you're going to get it serviced when you buy it anyway, for the sake of dropping the dropping the oil pan, the sump down, changing the pickup pipe, resealing it, sticking it back up for half an hour and probably 50 or 60 quid is well worth doing, just for peace of mind. And the other thing to check is see if there's ever had a clutch, ever had a turbo. If it's sort of 15 to 20 years old, it could have done 100, 150,000 miles. It may need a clutch. It may have had a clutch. It may have had a turbo. You don't know. So it's worth checking the paperwork if it's got a paperwork. If it doesn't have any paperwork, then hopefully the price is really good and you're getting a good deal, because like this one, it came with some stuff scribbled on the back of a cornflakes box. So I got it cheap enough that it is what it is. If it needs stuff, we'll get it done. And then the other thing is check it's got more than one key, for the main reason I said earlier, because you can lock yourself in quite easily or lock yourself out quite easily. And that can be quite expensive. And plus the keys to get made are sort of £100, £150 to make another key. So do bear that in mind when you're buying one. Obviously, you are limited for choice because they are older, and the likelihood is most of them will have some of these faults. So the next thing we'll move on to is going for a drive. So you're happy with everything we've discussed already. There's just a few things that are worth checking when going for a drive. Okay guys, so you're going for a drive, you've checked everything else and you're happy with what you've got. Now, some of the things you want to check: if it's got a boost gauge, ideal. You'll be able to check whether it's got the right boost pressure when you're accelerating really hard. You also can check things like that the gauges are operating as they should. You can turn this on and check the temperature to make sure it's reading the same as the display on the clock. So there you go, 78 degrees. The clocks aren't quite at 90 yet, so you know that's right. I'll just wait till we get on a main road and we'll open it up a bit. So clutch wise, you want to check that the clutch, say for instance, put it into third or fourth at a low speed, 20-30 miles an hour, and you want to just accelerate hard and see if, just sort of floor it and just see if the clutch slips. The revs shouldn't jump up on their own. They should be progressive with the speed of the car. If the revs jump or you start to hear a revving noise, then you know the clutch is slipping. You'll also have a feel for it. I mean, if you've ever driven a 1.8 turbo or a similar car, the clutch should be sort of somewhere in the middle, not too low, not too high. you can normally tell if a clutch feels bad because you almost sort of go flying off as you pull off. So we'll turn right out of here. So basically get it into second or third, and then if you wait till we get into the country road, we'll do it in third. When you fully accelerate, it should, if it has a boost gauge, if it's not mapped, it should go to about 10 or 12 psi, or if it is mapped, it could go up to sort of 20, 21. So put it into third gear at say 30 and accelerate hard, and it will pick up, and it should pull all the way through to the red line or to up near the top. If it hesitates, then you may have a boost leak, you may have a failed sensor like an N75 or a MAF. That's quite common on these. So we're coming up to a hill. I'm in fourth gear. I'm going to put my foot fully down. You can see the revs are nice and stable, and it is slowly pulling up the hill. It's not slipping the clutch, or it's not trying to jump out, so you know the clutch is probably all right. So yeah, I mean, that is sort of taking it for a drive. You want to, with like I said, on the bushes on the front, you want to, if you press the brake and then accelerate again, there should be no horrible knocks and bangs. Normally when the front bushes go, when you touch the brakes, you can normally feel like a thud where basically the wheels, the arms are moving forwards and backwards, and it's almost like the wheels are moving before they start braking. So that is quite a good indication that the bushes have gone. And just have a good feel. I mean, they're quite sort of nimble sports cars. You should be able to feel quite a good response on the steering wheel. If it feels a bit woolly or a bit soft, then some of the bushes may be on their way out. It may need some new ball joints, some new track rod ends. The steering, it might just be a little bit tired. If it's just had standard parts and it's over 100,000 miles or sort of 20 years old, they could be tired. So do bear that in mind. Most of it's quite easy to change and not that expensive, but it is more things to add on. Whilst you're going for a drive, you can put the aircon on, so just press the auto button, it will come on. You should be able to feel it getting colder pretty quickly. Mine doesn't actually work at the moment because I've got a small leak, but you should be able to feel it got ice cold. You should be able to feel it on your hand. So that is another thing to check. But I mean, to be honest, you'll get a good feel for the car. If it pulls well, I mean, you should just be able to drop it in any time. Say let's drop it into second. It pulls all the way to the end. If it's not mapped, it may not be so aggressive, but you should still feel a good sort of put you back in the seat. So just go for a drive. Don't be scared to pull over. Just check it maybe after you've been out for 5 or 10 minutes. And again, check your temperature. See this reading 92 now, so that's good. 92, 93 on this is the normal operating temperature. But yeah, just check the brakes work, check there's no thuds, check it doesn't pull you to one side. But generally with TTs, they're normally pretty good. Main faults are your clutches, you're hesitating while boosting. Another good one is when on idle, if you've got a boost gauge, you should get sort of negative 15 or negative 20. That's the vacuum being pulled by the engine, so you should know that you've not got too much of a boost leak issue there. So yeah, I mean, just like I said, just get a good feel for it. Handling, if you can, now this is obviously if you can, try and test the four-wheel drive system if it's a Quattro. Now the easiest way to do this is either find some grass or gravel, turn the traction control off by pressing this button here, the ESP button, and then just turning the steering wheel and letting it out and accelerating. You should be able to feel the back end try and spin up. It'll be quite obvious the way it sort of goes and feels, and that is a good indication that the four-wheel drive system is working, because if it doesn't, again, you may need sensors, there may need a service, it may need some parts which aren't particularly cheap, so bear that in mind. So, but yeah guys, so that is going to look at and buying a TT. What I will do is on our website at theparrotbros.co.uk, I will add a full guide on all the things we've discussed. I'll try and make it so it's a PDF download. If not, I'll do it so you can print it straight off the website. So if you do decide to go and look at a car, you'll be able to take all this information with you, and hopefully you'll get yourself a good TT. So thanks for watching, guys. That is another video from the Parrot Bros. Bye for now. If there's anything in the video that I haven't covered, and if you can think of something, or there's something you want to add, then please feel free to do so in the comments below. That'd be really helpful. I'll also add it into the description on the website, as it's always nice to know other things. These are just some of the things that I've picked up along the way, and mainly all the problems that I've had with my car. So that is something to definitely add. If you know anything, please jump into the comments below. Really appreciate it. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up.